So what do you call yourself? Welcome to the LaTangela Show.
Hey.
Hey, what can I do for you this fine day?
This is your destiny.
Hot, hot, hot. Right now.
Welcome to the LaTangela Show. Come on in and enjoy yourself.
Right now.
We gon' party like no one else. Welcome to the LaTangela Show. My mic sounds nice. How about yours?
I assume it sounds nice. I'm not going to sing it.
Well, you should. You should.
No.
See, there's this song that I've been wanting to hear. Mary Had a Little Lamb. Or This Little Light of Mine.
You going to let it shine?
I'm going to let it shine. But I think you should encourage us all to let our little light shine. Just as a mic check.
You know,
I think not.
No.
Well, you know what? It's okay, because we're going to kick the week off with a blast. Welcome to another episode of the LaTangela Show podcast. And you know, it does my heart well to have family in the hot seat on the tan line. She's no stranger to the community, no stranger to this hot seat, no stranger to this MIC. Charlotte Claiborne, how are you?
you know, you used to do that when you were little to make it sound like you had a crowd.
We still do that. What do you mean? What?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I don't like the fact that you call it the hot seat.
Well,
It
yeah.
makes me nervous.
And it should.
Okay.
But you know what? I'm not going to ask you any questions that you do not have the answers to. And I like to get the correct information, so that's why I like to come to the source.
Okay.
As the executive director, you have a lot that goes on day to day with the operations for the Bridge Center for Hope. Tell us a little bit about the organization itself.
So let me clarify. I'm the executive director for the Bridge Center for Hope nonprofit.
Uh-huh.
RI International is our provider. So they're in charge of the day-to-day operations.
And that's why it's good that we have you in here, because we do not know that.
Well, and I get that, because a lot of people, say, oh, the Bridge Center. But I want people to understand, even though we are the Bridge Center for Hope, there is another nonprofit provider that provides the services that we contract, and that is RI International. And they've been doing the services for 32 years. So it's best to go with the people who know what they're doing.
Yes.
And not reinvent the wheel, especially if that wheel that they've already created is new and improved, and they keep constantly improving it. So that's what I want to say. They're in charge of the operations. I don't want them to say, Charlotte's operating. No.
No, she's like, no. But that also highlights a very good point of collaboration, right?
Yes.
And knowing that people are bringing great resources to the capital city in the areas where we need it the most. Mm-hmm. And of course, leaning towards someone who has been doing this for over 3 decades. So this isn't we're just going to throw it on the wall, see if it sticks.
Correct.
We're doing test studies. No, this is something that we know will help in our communities. So even with the nonprofit side of it, there are a lot of things that we may hear. There are a lot of things that we may not know. And that's why it's important that we open a line of communication. And I would love for you to be able to come in and just talk about some of the services that you have, some of the things that you all are doing within the community, at least once a quarter, because it is important.
Once a quarter?
Yeah.
Okay. I can do that. So one of the things that I want the community to understand is literally what is a crisis stabilization center.
Okay.
And I find that I have to define that quite often, because the Bridge Center for Hope is the first and only crisis stabilization center in the state of Louisiana.
Wow.
So it's a new service. It's something that's been on the licensing standards books for years, but no one has actually ever applied for that license. So our license type is number 1.
Okay.
So when we talk about crisis, that definition, there is a definition in Webster, but when you look at it from an individual level, your crisis is not going to be the same thing as mine.
That's true.
I was at a meeting last week, and I explained to the individuals, I said, if you woke up today and you looked in your checking account and it was negative $2 million, you would panic.
Absolutely.
Some people, it would throw them in a crisis. Some people, they could handle it better than others. So what I tell people is, what I consider a crisis for me is not going to be the same thing that you consider as a crisis for you. So we don't define it or label it, but we do try to help it. So we try to meet you where you are.
Okay, help us to identify our individual crisis.
Correct.
But to say that we have a crisis in our community is already hard enough, because we don't know what's crisis. We don't know what's day to day. We don't know what's the norm, because every day there's always something. And once it piles up, you don't really know how to defrag and say what part is the crisis because it's all just been piling up for so long.
Yeah, and you know what? I think we are conditioned to believe that I can handle it. I can handle it. I can handle it. When we were younger, I used to say all the time, "Oh, you know, God will give you nothing you can't handle."
Yeah,
and we still believe that, but there comes a time where at what point do you need help?
Yeah, where you can't handle it by yourself.
Correct.
What levels do you extend that I need help to? Because you can't say it in every space. So you need a safe space.
You do. And so therefore he's giving you counselors. He's giving you guidance. He's giving you these individuals who are empathetic and compassionate to whatever your needs are. So there are people out there that can help you. So when we talk about the Bridge Center for Hope, we look at it into a couple of things. It's a crisis stabilization center for mental health and for substance use. Okay. So it's not just mental health. It's also for individuals who are struggling with substance use. We find that a lot of people who have undiagnosed mental health issues or who are diagnosed but don't have enough coverage, they self-medicate. Yeah. And a lot of times you self-medicate so that you can cope. And eventually, sometimes for some people it leads to an issue. Sometimes it does. It just depends. But it's not just for people who have mental health issues. People are addicted or have different addictions all over. I mean, you have cocaine. That's still a hot one.
It is. Opioids running rapid.
We talk about opioids, but we treat more cocaine addictions than we do opioid addictions.
Really?
Yes, we do. But with opioids, you have a higher death rate, though. So
is it because it's more accessible now, or what is that?
No. So with opioids, you know how the tip of a pinhead, just one little grain of that could kill you. It's just that potent. So with opioids, it doesn't take a lot. It just takes a little bit, because what's happening with the pills or what people are giving out, because those things are not manufactured in a pharmaceutical lab. You may have pills. You may have 50 pills. In those 50, they don't all have the same concentration. So pills 1 through 10 might have 15%, 20%, but pills 11 through 20 might have 100%. You have no idea. They all look the same, but because it's done, in a makeshift pharmacy a pharmaceutical lab.
It's a Russian roulette.
Yeah, so you have no idea. So you're thinking, oh, I took this pill, I'm fine, I'm okay, whatever, and then you pop another one. It could be 100 times more potent than the one you just had.
That's true.
And therefore you overdose.
And and even with that, you hear a lot of people saying, I know my body, I know my limits, I know my intake. But the more of that intake that you have, the more of your body that you're breaking down. So the resistance levels eventually goes down. And of course, your body can't handle it. So even if you think you have it all figured out and you can take small dosages, well, so many of those small dosages adds up to something that your body eventually cannot take, Yeah,
and I would say that with the other drugs. I wouldn't say that with opioids. And I'm saying that because, again, you don't know. Each pill is a different pill. Yeah. Each pill has a different concentration level. There's no one pill that has the same. Because fentanyl is an actual drug that is used in a hospital. They use it for surgeries, but it's done through a pharmaceutical company that knows what each dose, each concentration in there.
Yeah, so, and they're looking at your vitals while they're doing it.
Exactly, and they're not giving you, but just a little bit, So you're taking that and you're using, you're looking at that particular drug, but when you're making this at home and you're cooking it on the stove, you have no clue what's going to come out of that. Yeah. But two, with the Bridge Center for Hope. When you come to the facility, it operates, and it was designed to operate similar to that of an emergency department, because part of it was to relieve the pressure on emergency departments.
Okay, so when you say that, we don't have to set an appointment.
No.
It's walk-in.
It is open 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We are inpatient. Okay. That doesn't mean that you're going to be inpatient. About 60% of the people who come to the facility are discharged within the first 23 hours because it's stabilized. I'm stabilizing you to your next plan of care. Something you mentioned earlier when we were talking about the community, the whole thing with the Bridge Center is we are a continuum of care. Okay. When I say continuum of care, it is when you come to the facility, you go through a series of assessments and evaluations. You have a medical assessment, you have a nursing assessment, you have a psychiatric evaluation. There are a couple of things that you go through first. Mm-hmm. And once all of those things are done, if that person needs additional care. So a little bit more of, you can't stabilize them within the 23 hours. We do have a 16-bed unit where you can go. And
that's within your facility?
That's within our facility. Everything is within our facility. So, and that's for mental health and substance use. However, because we don't say no to anyone, we don't say no to law enforcement, we don't say no to EMS or anyone who comes to the facility, we're constantly working a capacity plan, which means we are utilizing our community partners. So if that person needs a 28-day residential program, that's for your substance use issues, there are 28-day providers. What we refer them to those locations.
Okay.
If that person has mental health issues, once they are stabilized, what we will do is refer them to an outpatient provider for them to continue that care.
That helps.
And that's the whole point, is to get them stable and then work with them on their discharge plans to figure out what's best for you, because what's best for me is not going to be best for you. Mm-hmm. And we allow them to tell us what works for them, because I can't tell you what's going to work best for you. You have to help me help you.
Right.
And so it's not one of those facilities where everybody goes to the same place. It doesn't work.
It's case by case.
It is case by case,
and that's why it's so important that you get in for the
assessment. And you tell me what you want. Tell me what you want, and I try to figure out what's best within what you're telling me, to define the best plan of care for you and treatment option for you to go to. And sometimes those locations could be outside of the parish.
Are you able to cater towards those needs?
So a lot of those individuals already have insurance. So as long as their insurance company will cover it, then what we will do is we'll contact those locations or those agencies, and then we will transfer. And most of that is for like substance use.
All right, good. I'm glad that you went there, right? Mm-hmm. So let's just say that we're having a crisis. We're dialing the number. We're walking up. Insured, uninsured, sliding scale fee. What does that look like within the realms of those who may need help and don't have the time to figure all that out in the moment?
So with the Bristol, in 2018, we passed a property tax. And what that property tax does is it covers the indigent population, those who are uninsured.
Okay.
Now, let me be clear when I say this. For East Baton Rouge Parish residents only.
Okay.
Because it is a property tax for East Baton Rouge Parish. So for individuals who come to the facility, if they are East Baton Rouge Parish residents, they do not have to have insurance. The Bridge Center nonprofit will cover that cost. And then we will also work with you trying to get you insurance, Medicaid or whatever. Mm-hmm. If you are outside of the parish, because RI International, our service provider, they do serve as the Region 2 provider, which is 7 parishes. Those individuals have to have insurance. So if you're coming from Ascension, West Baton Rouge Parish, West and East Feliciana, then you would have to have insurance to utilize the services.
Okay, but you can't come. You service anyone within the state, because this is the only model in the state.
Yes, we've served 51 of the 64 parishes last year.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot. That is a lot.
Yes.
Right? And serving 51 of the 64 parishes, about how many people would you say that you all render services to throughout the year?
Right now, we're averaging about 2,500. Well, the last 2 years, we averaged about 2,500. This year, I think that we might exceed that number and go to about 3,000. As of May 31st, from February 21st, 2021, when we initially opened, till May 31st of this year, I think our numbers are about 6,400.
Wow. And do you feel that as people learn more about the center, that they become to say it's okay not to be okay, and to come and get the help? Because for a while, people really don't like to show up for the resources.
I think not even just our center. I think just the culture itself right now. I think COVID played a huge role in people saying, I'm okay saying I'm not okay now.
Yeah.
Because it was just the whole country like, I am just not okay. People who genuinely were okay or just were not okay.
Yeah.
I think more people are talking about it. So it's reducing that stigma, but there's still a stigma nonetheless. So since the center is open, because of the way that we're set up, because anybody can come to the facility, utilize the services, we're open whenever. And you can come as often as you need to. There's no. It operates like the emergency room. So you don't have to say, oh, you've come here 6 times already. Now, if you come in here 18 times, I'm going to say, okay, what's going on? I'm not going to tell you can't come, but we're still going to try to figure out what's going on, because when you leave here, what's happening once you leave?
Yeah, there's another course of action that needs to be taken.
Exactly. So we need to figure out what's going on with you in that regard. But I think, though, the fact that they have somewhere to go, we don't look like a hospital. Our model that we adopted from RI, it looks like a home-like setting. If
Okay.
you go to our website, which is brbridge.org, there is a virtual tour, and your very own Tanja Miles conducts that tour for me. And so she goes through and she brings you through the entire facility, so you'll see exactly what happens, what it looks like, what each of the units look like, so
That's
people
good.
will know. And the staff at RI, they don't have uniforms. They look just like regular clothes, you and I, because they want people to. We're treating you like family.
Right.
I need to figure out what's going on. Let's talk about this. Let's see what's really going on. What brought you here? That kind of thing. So you can, I can't go in there. We can't go in there unless we're a patient. But if we were to walk in there, you wouldn't really know who's what, because everybody's kind of they're engaged. At all times. And so, when we start talking about mental health, I think as a Black community, we always think about. For me, I always think about, they had such a separation when I was growing up. You had the wing of the school that was dedicated for kids who were not necessarily considered, smart. Or that's what the word that they used back then. We know now that's not the correct term. Right. But you had that separation. Then you also had family members who had individuals who were mentally challenged. And, they would say, we'll leave so-and-so alone. But it never was addressed. And then you had a lot of what we call now trauma in our families that wasn't discussed, that wasn't talked about, or you would get bits and pieces and trying to piece it together. And all of that now is coming out, whether how it bubbles to the top, whether you want it to or not. And now people are talking about it, and I think social media plays a huge role into it too.
It's been a lot of toxic cycles.
Yes.
And just breaking that as a whole.
Yes.
We have to chip away at it bit by bit. And you identify that in the segments whenever it shows itself to you, because every day it looks different.
It looks extremely different every day. I never put my makeup on the same way every day. One
no matter how hard we may try,
one eyebrow can be that left one be giving me the vibe, and that right one, but it just don't want to do what I need it to do. So it's just that little thing. But I think though, with social media, with just the younger generation that we have now, is completely different from what I was raised. I raised my children. I regret it now sometimes to ask why, because I was raised with the answer of because I said so.
Because I said so. Don't question me.
And that drove me crazy. And so I made a point when I had kids, I would never tell my kids because I said so. And now I'm like, God, dog.
Because now I'm having to give them an explanation. I'm thinking to myself, I don't owe you an explanation about anything. Because I said so, but that doesn't work. Right. But now we want you to understand, because it helps them to process their feelings.
It does.
And it helps them to grow and to help us grow as well.
It helps them to process their feelings, but it also keeps the lines of communication open. I think I've done such a great job with my kids that they tell me anything, and I'm like, I cringe because my children are adults.
Brace yourself.
They're adults. They're not kids. One is getting ready to turn 18 next month, and one is turning 22. And they'll say, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, oh my God.
Can you just pass me?
I can't even imagine what you want. And it's sometimes it's great. Sometimes I'm going, I can't believe you're telling me this.
Well, but it's good to have that level of transparency, because if they don't ask you, they're asking the world. And we understand that they're going to get the right answer out of love from home.
Oh, well, I've even had it where one of my children called me with their friend and said they can't talk to their parents, but I told them they can talk to you. And I'm like,
what? Huh? Hello? Huh? Okay.
Me?
Okay. Brace yourself. Let's try this.
And I get that, and I'm thankful and I'm grateful that they trust me with their lives like that. But I wasn't prepared for this level of transparency, because I didn't have that growing up. And I'm like, oh Jesus, and now I'm like, go talk to your dad.
We have to filter it, but that's always a plus to know that we know how to filter it and to who to filter it, and still know that it's a circle of trust.
Correct. And so with that, and coming back to the Bridge Center for Hope, we want to create an environment where when you come, you trust us.
Yeah.
With your recovery. We want to make sure that you trust us with your life, or if one of your family members brings someone that family member trusts us. We had a lady who gave a testimonial once because her son was having trouble, and she brought him, And she said the one thing that stuck out of her mind was when the peer support and the nurse, because that's who you're greeted with when you first come in. And I'll touch on that in a second. They looked at her. They asked her a couple of questions. They talked to the son. We do a COVID screener outside first,
right.
you know. And then they looked at her and they said, "We got him." And they just said, "Okay, bye. We got him." And she said the fact that they said, "We got him," it meant something to her, and it gave her such a peace and a comfort, because it wasn't like, okay, you know, she wasn't brushed off. Her feelings wasn't diminished or, you know, or dismissed or anything like that. She really genuinely believed, which is what we try to foster, is we got you.
Yeah.
As long as you allow us to have you, because you know some people they'll get there and they're like, no, I'm not ready, and that's okay.
Yeah, because it's steps.
Sometimes
you very well may be at
okay.
the point to where you're ready.
And I want people to understand that it's okay if you got to keep doing it a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
And I want them to know that it's okay that if you have to keep coming back to us, we're not going to be like, oh my gosh, she's back again or he's back again. That's not what we're there's no judgment to this.
Yeah.
So it's
and it's
okay.
good to have that judgment-free zone, right?
You have to, because you know what? Tomorrow it could be you.
Yeah. We're all just one decision
We
away.
are one decision away. I tell people that in 2021, I had a series of events that for some people, it could have just pushed them over the edge.
Yeah.
For me, it did not, because I have a great support system. You know, in May, when we had that little fluke rain event, my house flooded.
Oh, wow.
I am not in a flood zone.
Wow.
And my husband and I sat there and watched our house fill up with water in a matter of 40 minutes. And we're like, okay.
Did not brace myself for this. Was not ready for this.
This is at 10 o'clock at night. You're kind of going, okay.
Yeah.
And then, thank God, you know, we had the foresight to have flood insurance, but not everybody did.
Right.
And so that was one thing. And then in that following July, our dog of 11 years died.
Right.
We had to put him to sleep. So I was
Right.
like,
That's
okay.
a family member.
That was
Yeah.
my fur baby. That was my popcorn buddy, you know,
Yeah.
that person. And then a couple months later in September, my father passed.
Oh, wow.
So I had a series of events just back to
life-changing
back
events.
to back, and I was still putting my house back together through all of this.
Right.
And it wasn't a moment that I didn't have where I just wanted to just break down. It was just a constant. It was like, okay,
This is a lot. This is a lot.
Okay.
Head on a swivel.
Okay.
This is a
You know,
lot.
I tell people you got to learn how to pivot. So I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. And I had family members. I have great friends that I treat just like my family. So when I say family, I mean my friends too. And then I have really great board members.
Yeah.
Because I'm the only employee of the Bridge Center, so everybody else is RI. But I also have great partners through RI that constantly check on me. You okay? What's going on? So I had that constant, you know, checking in on me to make sure I was okay.
And sometimes we forget how important that is.
You do, and some people don't have that.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. And so because of that, there are places like the Bridge Center for Hope, because you don't have that. So when you come, we got you.
Yeah.
But I want people to know that whenever you come to the facility, you're greeted by a nurse and a peer support specialist.
Now, what is a peer support
And I was
specialist?
getting ready to explain that. A peer support specialist is someone who has lived experience, meaning they've been diagnosed with a mental health condition or they're recovering addict or whatever, but they have gone through it and they're in their recovery phase for at least a length of time. And then there is also a extensive class that they have to take to be certified by Louisiana Department of Health.
Okay.
So whenever someone comes to the facility, RI calls it peer first, peer last. A peer support person is the first person they encounter along with the nurse, and that's the last person they encounter before they leave the facility, because that's the person who knows the steps you're getting ready to take.
Right.
Because they've been there.
Been there, done that.
Been there, done that. And
this is the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. So if you need anything, let me help you. That's the person you want to talk to, somebody who's done it, who's successfully doing it. And I say successfully doing it because they're always going to be in recovery.
And it's a day by day.
It's a day by day. And so I think when you're dealing with somebody, it's easy to talk to somebody who's been there, done that, and that gives them a sense of comfort, because if you've never, I can't tell you what you've gone through, because if I've never done it, I can tell you what I think you should do.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you what to do. So for me, my thing is, if you lose a parent, because I lost one, I can tell you how that feels for me, and I can tell you, I can describe how I was affected by it if you were to lose a parent. But for somebody who's never lost one, you really can't tell me nothing.
Right.
So I look at it in that, it kind of give it some perspective for people or in that regard. But
and knowing that people have a level of experience and transparency, because some people will go through things and just paint it all like it's just rainbow and glitter, and it's okay. There were no hard times. There's no magic pill for this, right? So even for so even with the peer support, just knowing how therapeutic this must be for them, to see that, okay, just one step backwards, it'll take me in another direction. But if I keep being a beacon of light, if I keep showing up for you, I'm showing up for myself as well.
You're walking in your purpose.
Yeah.
You're walking in your purpose. And so, you come there, you go through that. We have about, I want to say 40 to 6%, and I could be wrong, so please forgive me, or if I'm saying the wrong number, but of the staff is peer support. But you also have, a licensed clinical social worker, you have a licensed professional counselor, you have your registered nurse, your licensed practical nurse, you have your psychiatric nurse practitioner.
You're really fully
You have your psychiatrist. So you have all of this staff, and by us being open 24 hours, 7 days a week, you have to constantly keep this staff because you never know you might, at 2:00 in the morning, you might have an influx of people. You have no idea. So you constantly, it's just, again, like a hospital, you constantly have staff. We also have our own kitchen. The lady, her name is Abrasion. I'm putting you out there on blast, Abrasion, who is the manager for the kitchen. Oh my God, the food smells so good.
Abrasion back there with the comfort food.
Baby, listen. We have had people say they came back just so they could get a meal.
Well, you know what? I love the attention to detail, because when you're going through things,
and when I'm telling you,
the last thing you need is some saltine crackers to tell you to go on about your business with a cup of water.
She be cooking like it's a Sunday dinner, and then I'm like, "What is you cooking today?" And she said, "Oh, we doing it." I'm like, "Dog," and I don't ever eat but I'm looking and I'm like, I'm like, what
nice to partake. It's the attention to detail for me.
Oh my gosh. And they have, she does the whole thing. There's nothing missing. So I get tickled because I go in and I'm like, what's she cooking today? But they get breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Good.
And then they get snacks in between. We do that because, again, you just don't know when somebody's going to need help. What's funny to me is some people realize that you may be off because you're hungry.
Yeah.
Starvation will do things to you.
And sometimes they may be going and going and going and not even realizing that they haven't eaten.
Yeah, and so, that's the first thing they need to do when they come. They give them something to eat, kind of just because you never know if your blood sugar's off, all of that. And that kind of just sets the tone. It's just one of those things that we don't necessarily think about. A lot of people, I get this, a lot of people think that we're a homeless facility or we're a homeless shelter, and I want to clarify that. We are not.
Right.
But what I do tell everybody is that we treat everybody, regardless of who you are, where you come from, your background life. So that may include the homeless population. But I think our homeless population is about 7%. So that's very small when you compare it to the whole 100% of people that we treat.
Right.
So 93% are not homeless, but that 7% is. So you still going to treat them like you would treat anyone else with a 4-bedroom house, with an apartment, with $1 million, with $0. It's no respect of person. Just like mental health and substance use has no respect of person.
It does not. And we have to always keep in mind to be sensitive. Like you mentioned earlier, we do not know what people are going through.
No.
Everybody's going through something, no matter who they are, what phase of life they're in. Everybody is going through something, and we never know what that one thing that's going to push them over the edge. So even in our day-to-day interactions with people, we have to make sure that our tone, that the way that we perceive people and the way that we come across, it isn't some, get out of my way, or I don't want to be bothered, or we all have that data where we just may not want to be, I don't know, over the top friendly or whatever the case may be, but you don't have to be rude. You don't have to be ugly about it, because everybody is going through something, and we very well could be the only version of a Bible that people will ever see.
That's
and
true.
They'll remember that.
That's true. Before the Bridge Center opened, the phone number that was on the website was my cell number.
Uh-huh.
And people would call all throughout the night. And my husband would look and he said, "You answer?" I said, "Yes," because I don't know who's on the other end.
Yeah.
Obviously, they Googled crisis center.
Yeah.
And my number pops up. So they obviously were in crisis, because nobody's just going to be calling me at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And so I always would answer and talk to whoever it is, and then I would give them resources, because, again, we wasn't open at that time. And so that always just kind of made me think, oh, my goodness, that set the tone, like we are very needed before
Absolutely.
we were even open, because you just don't know. And I still get phone calls from time to time. I have a voice message now that's saying, hey, if you're looking for the center, this is the number, because I don't always answer, because I might be on the phone or I might not hear it.
Yeah.
But because we do have a number for them to call.
And now we have the center.
Yes. Like, you don't even have to call ahead. Just show up, ring the bell, and go in. You can also, I think we were talking about upcoming things. One of the things that I'm really am working on with our board for next year is transportation.
Now that's going to be huge.
Because when I go out into the community and I have these community events, I do talk and I do engage, and I ask them, have they ever heard of the Bridge Center? Some will say, it's about a 50-50 mix. Some will say yes, some will say no. And then I ask them, well, have you ever used the services? Do you know anybody who's used the services? And a lot of times they'll say yes, some say no, and I ask them why, and they'll say, well, we don't have a way to get over there.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay.
Yeah.
Right now, we do have a mobile response team, but the way that operates is you have to have Medicaid, because it's licensed under Louisiana Department of Health. So you have to have Medicaid for that. So in order to utilize that mobile unit, you have to contact, there's a 1-800 number on the back of your card, and go through that triage, and they'll bring you and connect you that way, or you can dial 988.
Which is the crisis hotline
number. Which is the crisis hotline number.
That's new, and of
That's
course,
new.
We really want to talk about that, because in the middle of a crisis, it could be someone that has a background of mental health issues, and instead of just dialing 911 and the cops getting there, everybody's on 10. No one is sensitive towards the needs that this is a reoccurrence. This happens all the time, or this is something that is more of a case specific. You can call 988.
Yes.
And then that way they will alert everyone before they arrive to the scene, correct?
From my understanding, yes. And don't quote me on that. With 988, it took over the 10-digit crisis number. And the reason why I did that, because a lot of people couldn't remember that long number, especially if you're in a crisis, right?
Right.
So the intention behind it was to create a 3-digit number similar to 911. So they made it 988. It rolled out in July of last year.
Yeah.
And that little 6-month period of time from July to December of last year, I think their calls went over 100%. I think they end up having like over 2 million something calls.
Wow.
In comparison to what they were having. So it's being used, but it's not being used as much as it could be, because you still have people using 911. But that's just an education curve, because it took a long time for people to get to 911.
Yeah.
So I think once if we talk about it enough, 988, then I think it'll be used more. But for the fact that it's been used over millions of times so it's working.
There's definitely a need for
There's
it.
definitely a need. So they can call 988 and they'll route them to us if they need to as well. But I want to create something that you don't have to use that service. So you could be able to just either call us directly and we can dispatch, because not everybody needs to call 911 to get a transport. They might be genuinely in a crisis, but they want to come to the facility and they just can't get there. So I want to be able to bridge, quote unquote, that gap that we have, so we can just go out and get them and pick them up.
And I applaud the efforts of you and your team. I know that the work is continuous,
Yes.
and of course, as there is a learning curve as we are expanding, and the more that people learn about the services, the more they learn about the smiling faces and the compassionate hearts there, they'll be more prone to come. And it's something that's needed. Is there like an age requirement there?
It is. So I'm glad you asked that. The only criteria that we have is you have to be 18 years and above. 18 years is considered an adult. So we don't do children. However, you still have to, for adolescents, you still have to go to the hospital.
Right.
And that's not that we don't want to do. There aren't any laws right now that will allow us to do a crisis center for adolescent population. But that's something I'm working on.
Okay.
I still got to get this straight.
Yeah. We still got to get this straight.
Yeah,
and we're still bridging.
We're
okay?
still trying to work this thing out, because I tell people, I say I don't mind being a pioneer and forging ahead, because I want other areas to duplicate the services. If we're doing 51 parishes out of 64, then there's a need. But I do feel like this, and I tell people, and it's in our annual report, I say, if I'm a forge ahead, but don't keep putting the making fences and stuff. So I got to keep knocking them down. Give me a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. I don't need a whole lot, but just a little bit.
Help me out.
Just
help me
just a
us,
little
please,
bit.
please.
Help me help you. But I tell people we're doing this because it's a need. We're doing this because our community saw that there was a need. The fact that our community voted to tax themselves to be able to provide services for individuals, that's amazing, because a lot of people don't do that. And that tax passed by 68%. And that's me telling you, I'm a contribute because I want to help someone else out.
Yes.
Because I may or may not need it, but somebody else may need it. And a lot of people, nobody wants to pay more taxes. Mm-hmm. But the fact that our community, and I say our community, I mean East Baton Rouge Parish, that's including Zachary, that's including Central, and that's including Baker, because people get lost that that's still part of EBR. They want to make sure that we as a parish come together as a whole. No other parish has done that.
And that speaks volumes.
It speaks huge volumes. There are no other parish, not even Orleans.
Wow.
No other parish has ever taxed themselves to provide services.
And listen, knowing that we're taxing ourselves and that the help is here,
correct.
Let's take full advantage of the services. I want you to log on today, brbridge.org. Again, that's brbridge.org. We've already put her in the hot seat on the 10 line. We've already gotten her to commit to come back once per quarter at least.
I don't remember saying
and
yes.
She did. She smiled. She nodded. And she didn't say no. It was like, yeah, once a what? Okay, yeah, I think we should. Okay. We have a lot that's going on.
Okay.
And you know what?
I'm saying yes.
As a part of my taxes.
I'm saying okay. I'm saying yes. See? I'm saying yes. Before you even say anything about taxes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's the teamwork I need in my life. And of course, Charlotte Claiborne, it's always a pleasure to have you here. This is an extension of your office. It's important that we get this information out to our listeners and to our viewers. And if there's ever anything that I can do to help push the needle forward in the right direction, you got me on speed dial, hit a bird call, or something. And you got that. I'm like, that's my cousin. Hey, cuz.
Thank you. I just want people to know that it's the summertime. Our overdose rate is going higher, getting higher by the week. So I just want people to understand we're here. We're open. We never close. Our tagline is always open, always here.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what time, day or night, regardless if you have insurance or not, if you're EBR resident, just as long as you're 18 and above. We got you.
I love it. And we got you. For more details, be sure to log on to brbridge.org or give them a call at 225-256-6604. Now, I know you got more work to do, so I'm going to let you chase the sun or let the sun chase you. But either way, get after it. I love you, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it.
I wouldn't even try.